Now, these Monday Magic Lessons this month are all around your intuition. I truly desire every single person in Soul Led and Satisfied to be able to tap into that soul led part, which is the part of you that's listening to your soul, that is led by your soul, that is designing and creating a life that is soul driven and not simply just mind mapped and manipulated. Like your mind is powerful, it is magical, it is amazing, it is so helpful to get stuff done, and yet it is like a quarter of the picture. It is not the whole picture. So if we're living our lives based solely on our mind, which it's very easy to do in our society, which tells us intellect rules everything and we need to have it all ABC'd to be able to get to D, we are doing something radical here by choosing to harmonize mind, body, soul, source, all of those things together. So, first of all, congratulations for being in this space, for owning your own power and your own education on your own power. And let's start talking about today's topic. So, last Monday, we were talking about understanding your current relationship with your intuition. Today's topic, taking it one step further, we're talking about how do you identify where your intuition is blocked. You might find it's blocked in many areas. You might find it's not so much blocked as muffled a little bit. And you might think, and this is where sometimes we can get into traps, you might think that it's not blocked at all or that you're completely open channel. And I still encourage you, even if you're in that boat, even if you have that mindset, even if you're like, nah, I'm actually really good with how I'm using my intuition and the level through which I'm getting the messages and the clarity and the direction, and it's really helping me day to day, still lean in and listen, because there's always areas for us to clean up our relationship with ourselves. And who doesn't want to be more tuned in to your soul, to source, to what is really, truly meant for you? So today we are talking about the blocks. So how to identify your blocks or what might be limiting your connection with your intuition. My voice, very interestingly, just losing itself right there. So the first little intuitive message I want to send out to everyone is, and this isn't part of the lesson, this is just really coming through in this moment. Our intuition, and this might be a mic drop moment for for many of us, for all of us. Where do you find it hard to speak up in your life or to speak out? That is one area your intuition is blocked in. Because if you are truly tapped into your intuition in that area, if you were truly allowing yourself to be guided by your intuition, there wouldn't be that, oh, my throat is closing up and I can't say this thing and blah, 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 mind rabbit hole that talks you out of actually saying what you want to say or actually communicating in the way that you want to communicate or even talking the amount that you want to talk. When you silence yourself, when you feel like you actually have nothing to say, even though you know there's something that wants to come up, that is one of the biggest and most blocked areas of your intuition. I want to hold space for that thought for a moment. I didn't expect it to come through, but it feels almost more powerful than anything else I'm going to say today. So really lean into that. Do a little bit of a mental scan. See, this is where your brain is good, giving it a task, doing a little bit of a mental scan of your life. You might want to look at your calendar, think about all the things you're doing this week and the places you're going to be and the people you're interacting with. So doing that mental scan, and you might have a physical sensation, or you might just know, where does it feel like you can't speak? You can't speak up. You can't speak your truth. You can't say what you really want to say. Maybe you already know you're just going to have to bite your tongue and just agree with people and let them have their way because your voice isn't going to be heard. Really leaning into that one today. It feels very powerful. It feels almost like that is going to be something that resonates with each and every one of you. It might also be, where don't you speak the truth to yourself? Because one of the most important things about our intuition, because every single person in the entire world has intuition. I bet animals also have intuition. Like it's just one of those things. It's like everything has blood. Actually, I think some insects don't, but let's ignore that. It's just a part of us is our intuition. We all have it, but we don't all access it. We don't all have the relationship with it that allows it to be useful, that allows it to be applied. If you're really still stuck on the relationship with your intuition, make sure to watch the last week's. But today we're talking about blocks. Now, when our intuition is in competition with our mind, if we're not really practiced in following our intuition, the mind wins because everything else in our life tells us to follow our mind. School, work, probably family, the books we read, the content we consume. So let's just acknowledge here that if you're doing a head-to-head battle, mind and intuition, and you're not like bodybuilder in your intuition, it's so easy for the mind to win. It can be louder, it's more insistent, it's constantly running chatter, and it's reinforcing itself over and over again. It's getting stronger, it's building its muscles simply by repeating what's in your head. We need to start practicing our intuition, but that is a separate conversation. So let's step into this today. Now, if you've already had some ahas, and I bet you will, if you've already realized there's places, people, certain aspects of your life where this is blocked, and therefore we have this window into where our intuition might be blocked, pop it in the comments below. I want you to own it. I want you to actually see it, because that's another thing. If we tuck things in the back of our mind, what does it do? It deletes it. It puts it into the back corner. It doesn't want you to prioritize your intuition necessarily. It wants you to focus on doing. It wants you to focus on surviving. It wants you to focus on just following the crowd. So write it in the comments. Also, and I'm going to be transparent, by you showing me what's resonating, what's landing, what's challenging, what's exciting, what's helping, I can help you more. For all of those that responded to my questions in the DM the other week, I've sent you resources specifically on the areas that you've identified as being a bit of a challenge at the moment. And if you haven't sent me answers or you don't know what I'm talking about and you want personal specific support, resources, guidance, help, check your DMs. This is how you know, beyond that one, how your intuition is blocked. You get feelings and you get like a sense of something, but you can't follow it. Like it's almost like there's something there, and you lose it. Everything feels like a yes or a no. It's very hard to discern what you should do, what's meant for you. It's just like, yeah, I could do that, or I could do this, or nothing feels good enough. Nothing feels right. So it's hard to decide. Another way to know if your intuition is blocked is the mind is the loudest voice, and it's just assumed as truth. You're like, if I have a question, here's the answer, probably 50,000 answers, rabbit hole, etc. But it's the loudest voice in the room because it doesn't appear to be a better option. Or you get that sense, but the mind just argues you in a different direction. So that's a few ways to know where and how your intuition is blocked. And I really invite you to embrace those very generally, as in maybe you don't get feelings, but you do get senses, or you get signs or synchronicities from the universe. So just sort of, are you receiving, but you can't really do anything with it? Or maybe you feel like you're not receiving anything at all. Another sign that you're blocked. Now, what does it look like when we're unblocked? Because it can be hard to really grasp and understand a block if we can't conceive of not block. So what does it look like when your intuition is unblocked? Your intuition can be understood. So you're getting the awareness, you're receiving the signs, you're getting the feelings, the senses, the synchronicities, and how to move forward on it. Very special little disclaimer here. That's not saying your intuition goes, and here's the next 10 years of your life. But your intuition goes, that butterfly made me think of this thing. I need to go and do this one baby step. So it gives you something to do, a direction to flow in. And just go with however much flow it gives you. You can get clear yeses, clear nos, or clear not nows. That one in and of itself, greatest gift my intuition has ever given me. Because as a creative mind, I can come up with 50 ideas a day, probably more if I actually tried. And when my intuition was blocked, it was like all of them felt amazing or all of them felt terrible. And that just left me overwhelmed and doing nothing. Tapping into my intuition allows me to go, yes, that is meant for me. No, that's not meant for me. Even if it's like the best thing ever, but it's not meant for me. And these ones, they're a yes, but they're just a yes later. Such a weight off my mind to be able to discern and distinguish. And it's the intuition that does that. The mind will probably just argue for, what is the safest or what is a recreation of the past. Or it might just, argue for all the reasons why it's good and all the reasons why it's bad, and you're still left in overwhelm. Also, when your intuition is unblocked, the mind is still a voice. We're never going to get rid of our mind, and we don't want to. It's a tool. It's amazing. It can do awesome stuff. But you can also distinguish the higher guidance and the wisdom of your intuition. So it is literally like, oh my God, this is what's leading me, and this is what's taking me there. So your intuition leads, and your mind is, the vehicle that actually takes you in that direction. You make a plan, you take action, you figure out steps. So that's just a little bit of an insight of what an unblocked intuition feels like, looks like, can be used for. So if you're on the fence of, do I really want to take this lesson seriously? Do I really want to apply this? The answer is 100% yes. That is my mind and my intuition giving you that answer. All right, so I have 5 questions for you today to help you, specifically you, identify what's blocking your intuition. Now, I will copy and paste these questions into the description of this video. I want to highlight here, you don't need to spend an hour journaling on these questions. As I'm reading them, allow yourself to be open to getting a sense of which one is resonant to you. These questions are to help you pinpoint the area of your life where your intuition is blocked. I would even encourage, as I read these questions for the first time and you're hearing them for the first time, maybe on your, pen and paper, I hope you all have pen and paper, writing, 1 to 5. And just as you're listening, not writing, just as you're listening, I'll read the first question and just put a ticker across if that feels resonant to you. And resonant, just to hone in on that for a second, it might hurt your heart. You're like, oh, yeah, that's a tick. If it just feels like nothing and you're like, and you've almost forgotten it by the time I've finished reading it, it's a cross. You might get a lot of ticks. You might get a lot of crosses. You might have one big tick and some like, I'm not sure. If it's a not sure, I would put a question mark, or I'd even put just a little tick. So it's not like the biggest, boldest thing, but there's something there. It's probably just not the priority at the moment. So let's do this. If you need a little time to prepare, pause it before we get started. If, of course, you do this and then afterwards you want to journal deeper, I highly encourage that as well. But only once you've allowed yourself to just intuitively, because we're always practicing, intuitively tick or cross. Don't second guess it. And if you're really hung up on one, like, oh, I don't know, it's this, it's maybe, or it could be, put a tick, because you've obviously got a little bit of baggage around that area. Something to look into anyway. But before I read these questions, because I've just asked you to really tune into your intuition and we're going to practice it, let's make sure you're grounded first. Again, if you need to pause this to get into a more grounded state, I highly recommend you do that. The minimum, a deep breath. Let's identify what's blocking your intuition. Question number 1. What would your parents think about you living intuitively? Question number 2. What would your friends think about you living intuitively? Number 3. What would you think about yourself if you were living intuitively? Number 4. What's the best thing that could happen from living intuitively? This one might require a little bit more of an answer. I forgot. And our final question, what's the worst thing that could happen from living intuitively? So with those last two, what's the best thing, what's the worst thing? It might be a tick and a cross kind of situation as well, because you're like, oh, I'm not really worried about what's the best thing, or I'm not really worried about what's the worst thing. Or you might realize it is something to worry about. And then probably also you want to journal a little bit deeper. You might have a sentence, you might have a statement. So identifying the point of those 5 questions were to help you identify where you don't feel safe to be intuitive. Even if it's in your own mind, even if it's in your own self, even if you're the type of person who desires to be intuitive, you can still be your own block. Your past, your thoughts, your beliefs, your patterns, your habits, your history. And this will reveal to us where we need to heal, what we need to uncover further, and where we may need to put some boundaries in place as well, especially if those are ones around other people or certain aspects of our life. Those questions, like any lesson, is always just a starting point. So I invite you to really embrace whatever's come up and through, communicate in the comments what resonated. And specifically, I would really love to hear what's the best and the worst things that could happen from living intuitively if something really exciting or interesting or powerful came up for you. And I bet something did. We don't often ask ourselves these questions. So share your insights and challenges around addressing these in the comments as well. Like you might go, oh my God, I feel terrified about my friends seeing me living intuitively. Pop that in the comments, but also tell me the challenging parts of that. Is it about being excluded? Is it about being judged? Is it about realizing that you don't have many close friendships? And what does that mean? What does that bring up? So let's use this as an active practice of identifying and going deeper, and also sharing where and how I can help. And if you see someone else's comment and you want to support them, you want to champion them, you want to give them guidance, you want to point them in the right direction, you want to share your experience and your learnings in that area as well, do that. We are a community. We are here to see, hear, support, hold, help each other. And this is a perfect place to do that. Thank you for joining me. I can't wait. Like literally, this topic, this area of study, this area of personal growth can be the thing that changes your week, your month, your life, your trajectory, your future. Lean into it, listen to what comes up, and make sure to reach out for that support and help as well. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the comments.